In this video, we're going to be checking out one of my favorite go-to reverbs, and that is the Cinematic Rooms by LiquidSonics. But before we get started, my name is Ed, you're watching Stokes Sounds, and if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. And if you want to support the channel, head over to our website, stokessounds.com. You'll also see that I'm running one-on-one mixed consultations, so I will leave a link in the description below for that as well, so go and check that out. Now let's dive in. So you can see here, I've got the Cinematic Rooms pulled up, and I've got it on the acoustic guitar. Now I tend to use it on acoustic instruments or kind of instruments where I want it to kind of have the emotion of it being played in a room. So, you know, in this case, acoustic guitar player, he's playing in a room with a mic, and I want to be able to adapt and change that room. And that's kind of where I go and grab this plugin and do that with. So at the moment, I've just got it in the default mode. So I'm going to bypass it. I'm going to play the acoustic guitar as it was recorded, and then I'm going to unbypass it. And you're just going to hear what this plugin is doing just in the default mode. I mean, the plugin just speaks volume for itself. It's absolutely crazy just what it does. Just in the default mode, you know, I've got it on a little bit. I've taken the wet down just because I've got it on the actual guitar group itself, and I've just blended that into taste. But, you know, it's just crazy just what it does. The depth it adds, the way that it just makes that guitar tone just feel silky. It feels nice. It doesn't, it has like a certain kind of feeling, the way that the emotion that that guitar is playing and the space that it's creating. It just does an absolute wonderful job at doing that within this plugin. So that's kind of why I go for it. Now, as I say, this is in the default mode. You know, if we just look at the plugin itself, you can see all of the options we've got here. You know, we've got the depth, the proximity, the size, the reflective, and even they've given us the reflection, the room reflection, and the reverb mix, so we can get the decay and the space of the reflection of the room kind of separated and equal mix, and, you know, change the mix of that, which is really, really cool to have that, because it just gives us a lot of flexibility. You got this usual pre-delay that you get. You know, there's just so many options. It's got dynamics built in, so we can compress the reverb, we can even EQ the reverb. And, you know, I haven't done anything to this. This is just the box standard default preset at the moment. But if we now just play around in the default settings and just kind of see what we can do by changing, you know, the proximity and the size and all of that great stuff, and just see where we land, and then we'll go into the presets that this plugin also offers. I mean, I'm just obsessed with the amount of controls we've got. Here, if we go to the EQ section, usually for me and my personal preference with, reverb is I don't really like to have too much low end in, and I don't really, want it to be too bright. I kind of want that kind of mid-range in the reverb. That's kind of, my taste and what I like. So you can see here, I'm just taking out some bottom because it's just frequencies that are not needed, and I just knock some high end off. And then if we actually go to the room itself, you can see, I took it down as the reverb time, the decay to 1.4 seconds, and then I was messing around with the pre-delay. Now the pre-delay, a lot of people get confused on, so that's kind of how much delay between the source and when the reverb hits. So the higher the pre-delay, kind of the source is going to be more forward, and then the reverb is going to kick in later on after the acoustic guitar in this case has been played. So by playing around with the pre-delay allows us to kind of create that separation between the guitar and the reverb. And then the really cool thing about this is we've got the room reflection and the reverb mix as a separate thing that we can blend in, and that's really cool because we can create different depths and different taste of how we like the reverb on the guitar. So I just think that that's absolutely amazing to have. And you can see on the proximity, this is kind of how close the reverb feels within the space that we are. So in this case we are just in the cinematic room's default, which goes to the hall, and I just wanted to have it kind of a medium proximity. I just felt like I wanted to have a little bit more space kind of hugging the acoustic guitar than have it so close to the acoustic to get the reverb, a little bit less defined from the guitar itself. So it's acting a little bit how I'm using the pre-delay. They kind of work hand in hand. I don't know if that's correct in terms of how this plugin is kind of working, kind of behind the scenes, but in my eyes, the proximity and the pre-delay is kind of playing off each other. So I kind of go between those two to get the feel. And again, I took the decay down to 1.4 seconds because of the speed of the song. I didn't want this reverb to sound too messy, so I just felt like in this case I wanted it at 1.4 because there was quite a lot of staccato guitar playing, and I wanted to keep it punchy, but I just wanted to have a little bit of the decay of the room between the way that the guitar player was changing the chords. So again, reverb and reverb time and setting up the room is really song dependent, so you have to just use your ears and feel it, and until it feels right, that's kind of when you've got it. As I said about the EQ, there are kind of general things that I do when I mix, so by taking low end out because it's just creating more mud in the bottom end. As I said, that's just my personal preference. You don't have to do that. Now, if we take a look at the presets that this plugin has to offer, it's incredible. We've got so many. We've got ambience, chambers, halls, and so on. Now, what I love is it's got the signature bundle as well, which has got Alan Branch. Now, Alan Branch used to be my lecturer, so I know that it's going to be good. And if you haven't heard of Alan Branch, go and check him out because his mixes are unbelievable. He is super talented. And to be honest with you, he's the reason why I'm mixing today, because I really am inspired by his mixes. And whenever I hear a song from him, I remember once a few years back, I heard this mix and I was like, who mixed it? It was him, and it had a reverb on it that I loved and the vocal. And I was like, Alan, what did you use? Because I love your settings. I love the way he creates depth and clarity within his mixes. So, in this case, we've got an acoustic guitar and I like Alan's mixes. So let's use his preset. So let's go with the Alan Branch warm acoustic guitar because we've got an acoustic guitar. So why not? Now let's just hear this preset. Again, I'm going to bring this all the way back. I'm going to blend it in and then we're going to bypass, unbypass and kind of hear what this preset within this plugin is doing to the acoustic guitar. I mean, again, just listening to that preset that Alan's done, it's unbelievable. Again, the way that the guitar is kind of the reverb decay is happening, when the guitarist is playing kind of the staccato parts, and the way that that's blending all of the acoustic guitar layers together as one and creating this depth and clarity. It's just unbelievable. You know, I don't even think in this preset there's any EQ on. Maybe just on the preset didn't feel like he needed it, or it was track dependent, so he didn't add it on. But again, just unbelievable sounds of this room. It's reflections. What, you know, I don't even know what he's done. I'm just going with it. Now let's actually tailor this now to our song. So, you know, we've used his preset just to get like, you know, a vibe. Now let's just play around with the parameters and just kind of tailor it to see if we can kind of beat the preset and tailor it towards the kind of the speed of the track and the feel. Now I've just messed around with it, you know, I'm just doing this live, I'm just feeling what that guitar's giving me, and I'm just applying it kind of from my brain onto the plugin. So now let's just bypass it, unbypass it, and just kind of hear kind of what I've done going off his preset. I mean, it's like night and day. I mean, you can't really go wrong. It's just, it's got such a nice kind of decay. And what I love about how LiquidSonics have done this with the cinematic rooms is, you know, it kind of has this kind of thickness and texture that when you're applying it onto an acoustic instrument, because acoustic instruments, they're quite delicate in the sense of, you know, you don't want to over process, you don't want to kind of ruin the organic kind of organicness, if that's even a word. You don't want to ruin that feel. And one thing that I find about the cinematic rooms is it doesn't take away that kind of organic recording feeling. It kind of just adds to it. So, you know, it's definitely a tool to have in your toolbox because, you know, it's a complete winner for me when it comes down to room reverbs. Now let's try this reverb plugin on some electric guitars. So we've got some electric guitars pulled up here. This is a loop from our sample pack, Stokes Sounds The Guitar Lounge Volume 1. So definitely go and check that out. I'll leave a link in the description for that. But let's just actually listen to the guitar as a loop without this plugin on. And then I'm going to put it on in the default mode. Again, I'm just going to take the dry down because it's on the actual bus. This plugin makes me so happy, honestly. I mean, just in the default mode, I just turned the wet down just because it's on the bus, but just listening to that, I can't explain the feeling that it adds to the guitars, but it just makes the guitars wider, bigger, deeper, just has this amazing effect on it, and it just makes me really happy. And you know, I know I'm geeky when it comes to reverbs, but honestly, the clarity that this plugin is just unbelievable. So let's try some of the cinematic rooms presets that they give us. You know, with electric guitars, I tend to go for rooms to make sure like the band are in the same feeling or the same space. So, you know, there's so many presets here. I mean, if we just go to live room on studios and just go with the first one and just kind of bring up this a little bit and just kind of see what this sounds and flick through them, we'll find one that sounds good and then we'll tailor it to the feel of our electric. So this preset here that I've got pulled up, the studio stage Bryson sample, just sounded good to me when I just flicked through them. So I went with it. Now you can see it's quite a small room. It's 0.8 seconds. You know, I don't tend to like my rooms huge, especially on electric guitars if they've got, you know, crunch or some distortion on, because I don't want it to sound messy. I like things to be kind of tight and controlled. And so by having kind of a smallish room with a shortish pre-delay, it kind of, you know, allows me to have kind of that. You know, so I went with it. Now let's just play it again, just the electric guitar, and just play around with the parameters that we've got here and just see if we can, you know, beat the preset. You know, I'm not afraid to use presets. If it sounds good, it is good. There is no kind of ways of doing this. It's all about kind of feel and emotion and what the music is bringing to your ears and how you want that to translate onto the plugins, in this case, cinematic rooms. So now let's have a jam with this plugin and just kind of play around with the reverb, and let's get it to sound really cool with the electric guitars. I like where that's heading. Let's just keep playing around and just kind of bring up this dry and wet. It's all about push and pull, this mixing. It's just kind of feeling it. Sometimes I kind of push the plug-in to how I like it, and then I just bring it down a little bit just to stay on the safe side. That sounds good to me. I like the delay at 1.5, 2 or 1.5. You know, I didn't feel like I needed the pre-delay. I didn't really want that separation. I literally wanted it like those electrics were just in that room, not kind of with the room kind of behind. I just wanted it there. I changed the proximity to a medium. I just wanted to have a little bit larger. I felt close was a little bit too close to me, excuse the pun, but I just wanted to have that little bit more kind of air, and the way that he was playing, the feel, the tempo, I just felt like it kind of worked. You know, I didn't mess around with everything. Probably could have, but you know, I did a bit of EQ work. Again, didn't want the low end in. Felt like there was already kind of that kind of quite plucky high electrics. It really doesn't need the low end, and I felt like the clarity and the definition really came through the way he was plucking the electric guitar strings. Just felt kind of better by having kind of low end taken out in the reverb. And it's just about playing kind of with this mix knob, just to kind of, you know, how much reverb to add, how much, you know, not to add, I guess. It's just, again, a taste, and it also depends what other instruments you got. But obviously in this demonstration I'm just using the source only, which is the electric guitar in this case. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bypass and unbypass it. So this is the settings of the bright ensemble preset, but you know, adapted to kind of how I like it. And then you're going to hear exactly what this Cinematic Rooms plugin is doing on the electric guitars. Again, it's just unbelievable. The atmosphere that plugin just creates, you can't compare it to any other plugins really. I mean, they've really nailed that room sound. So, you know, definitely check this out for yourself. You've got, you know, room reverbs and you feel like you just want to kind of go that extra level with your room reverbs, then definitely check out the Cinematic Rooms by LiquidSonics. I will leave a link in the description below. And that's it. That's the LiquidSonics Cinematic Rooms. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. If you've got any questions about the plugin itself, or you know, any uses for it, then definitely leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to all of you. Also, don't forget I'm offering one-on-one mix consultations. So if you want to get yourself personal mix feedback, you know, tips, tricks and techniques about your own mixes, then definitely click that link in the description below and get yourself booked in, and I'll see you again next week for another video.